recorded, so if you want to say anything, it's recorded, so you can continue.
All right, thanks. All right, so yeah, let's just jump into it. So Figma for everybody. But before we start, in case you don't know me, I think most of the people here know me, but yeah, just for good measure, Mano is actually my real name. It's the short form of my real name, which is very long, Onowomano. So yeah, and it's probably I forgot to include that. It's probably the first time you're hearing that name, except that Mano company that is trying to steal the uniqueness from my name. I like to say I'm a learner at day and a designer at night, which is a lie because I sleep a lot at night. So I do both day and night. But I really like to learn a lot, really. That's the point. Um, yeah, I can do a backflip. It's been a while, so I don't know if I can still do that. Moving on. So I'm going to give you a little backstory before I found the love of my life, which is Figma. Figma Maria, as Pablo Stanley would say. Sorry. All right. So yeah, so before Figma, I was a Photoshop fan. I still am, but Figma seems easier and better. It's like, why not do it in Figma, right? Why do you have to use Photoshop? Uh, it's very stressful. Okay. Sorry, I need to try and disable this notification. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Mano is trying to turn off his notification because a lot of people are trying to reach him. So he would join back in like a minute.
Sorry about that. Can you see my screen? I think you can.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I was saying before Figma, I was a Photoshop fanboy. Photoshop is like the god, or it was like the god design software back in the day. And I found out about Figma in a webinar I watched or attended during the pandemic. I think I'm not really sure, but I knew it was a webinar. It was someone from InterSwitch. He was talking about how he's an OG designer and the newbies are using Figma. And he's like, I was Figma. So I was like, oh, okay, let me check what Figma is. Then I found out about Figma and it looks really cool. So I'm going to show you Photoshop. Yeah, I'm just joking. We've moved on. So moving from moving from Photoshop to Figma was really easy. I just had to watch an entire playlist and I did some practice. But the point is Figma did something Photoshop did not do at the time, which was they made it easy for you to learn their software. Photoshop was just you had to watch third-party tutorials, if I may say. So people like you and me, regular designers who just uploaded content on YouTube. But what better way to learn about the software than from the actual people who made the software, right? So that's one of the high points for Figma. And fast forward to 2021, Photoshop has started making videos on how to use Photoshop now. I won't say they copied them, but yeah, it's not a big deal, right? So moving on, this was the first website I designed in Figma, and I was just transitioning from a graphic designer to a product designer. I think I just discovered product design. Um, yeah, it was really interesting at the time because I was supposed to show the first website I built. I made my first website ever in Photoshop, like I said, and I had to take screenshots and draw lines of the distance between home and this guy and all of that, right? So this was the first website I designed in Figma. Uh, if you are if you're an OG designer or if you're not an OG designer, you would see some issues with this. Anyway, it's a one pager, I guess. No, it wasn't a one pager. Anyway, moving on. So Figma makes everything less difficult, makes everything easy to be precise. That's why I'm advocating for Figma. And yeah, that's why I'm telling you how to use Figma. So Figma Maria, that's what a designer, I think he's from Argentina, I'm not sure. His name is Pablo Stanley. He calls Figma Maria. So Figma has the same tools as your regular design software and same functionalities as well. It's just easier and it does it better. So take, for example, if you're familiar with design tools, you would know that this is a pen tool. Figma has a pen tool. This is the move tool. This is a shape tool, a rectangle to be precise. This is the text tool. And these are called pathfinders in Photoshop and Illustrator. But in Figma, it's called Boolean. And there are some alignment tools as well. And there are a whole lot more tools that you can find in any other design software that you would find in Figma. Figma just makes it, like I said, less difficult, makes it easy. I would have shown you a comparison of Photoshop, and I think I wanted to do that. I want to do that. Okay, I'll probably do that later on. Yeah, so every design tool has a layer panel or a layers panel. Design tool even extends to AutoCAD and the very first design softwares, even on your mobile phones, maybe PixArt and what's this one called? Procreate on iOS. So they all have layers. The layers panel, it's one of the most fundamental part of design softwares. And layers panel just means that everything is stacked upon each other. So think of it like if you did technical drawing in school where you have a drawing board, or if you're an artist, you have the paper you draw on, then a layer is like you put a transparent paper on the canvas and you just write on it so that everything is independent of each other or they are together. It depends on how you do it. I'm talking too much. There's also artboards and frames. Figma has this as well. It's just the number of screens you have displayed on your screen. That does not make sense. I would explain. Moving on. So this is a random sub to everybody that uses Canva or CorelDRAW. So catch your sub. Thank you. All right, I'm just joking. Every design tool matters, right? Because they all have similar attributes. So what I'm saying in essence is if you can do basic things in Figma, then you can actually just move on to any other design software rather easily, right? I'm not sure about 3D softwares though, but moving on. So yeah, Figma, but for visual design or graphic design, if you may. So I like to say Figma is Photoshop Lite on the cloud. I'm saying Photoshop Lite because Photoshop is like that software that does everything, 3D and the rest. But Figma is very streamlined to be less difficult. And it has the capabilities of Photoshop thanks to plugins, which I'll talk about much later in this session. I just want to confirm if you can still hear me. Can you hear me, John?
Yes, boss. Yes,
Yeah,
boss.
yeah, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. So these are some of the designs I made in Figma, right? So the flyer for this session was made in Figma. Then I did this design also, Eid Mubarak in Figma. Moving on. So for typography in Figma, I think I should switch to Figma right now. So I explain some things. So here is Figma in dark mode, and this is my slide. As I said, layers panel, the layers panel is very essential to every design tool. So this is the layers panel on the left-hand side, right? And these are pages at the top. And this is this black area. Let me change the color so it's cute. Let's say cute pink. So the pink area is like the canvas. I call it the canvas. You don't necessarily, let's use a table as an analogy. It's like your table. You don't want to write on your table. Yeah. You want to write on something on the table. So these guys are called frames in Figma. They are called artboards in Photoshop and Illustrator. I think there is a software called Affinity Design. I haven't used that, but I guess they would have a name for frames as well. So a frame is that thing you design on without actually designing on the canvas. You can actually design on the canvas, right? So let's say I draw, this is a shape tool, that's a rectangle. If I draw a rectangle here, I'm drawing it on canvas, but it doesn't exist in a frame. So it's like writing on your table. It's annoying, right? But you might want to keep some things on your table. So you can decide to, let's say you move this here for later reference. Yeah. So you don't necessarily design on the table, you design in frames. So moving back to the slide. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to talk about the very basic level in designing in Figma, especially. I think everybody's day-to-day activity revolves around communicating, and I think the most popular way we communicate is through words, whether verbally or when you write things down. Anyway, when you document things by writing. So typography is basically I'm going to say basically the most basic. I'll go with it. It's basically the most basic form of design elements that you can interact with. So there are 4 areas of typography I'm going to talk about, and one is choosing a font or the font family or a typeface. A typeface and the font family are essentially the same. It means that there is one font. In this case, I'm going to use Inter. And for people who are not familiar with fonts, Times New Roman is a font, Comic Sans is a font, right? But the family is when you have Times New Roman bold, Times New Roman regular, yeah? So the family comprises of these different weights, right? So this is Inter, and there's Inter regular, Inter medium, and Inter bold. So I'm going to go to my slide and just show you the portion where I have this. All right, so if you look at the right-hand side, oops. If you look at this side, you can see there's an area called text. Sorry, I can't zoom in. And when you click this, you see all the properties, all the weights, they're called weights or styles of that font. So that's what makes up a family. The family is Inter. The font's name is interregular, right? Moving on. So we have letter spacing. Letter spacing is very important, but a lot of people don't pay attention to letter spacing. Letter spacing is essentially the space between each letter, each character, the space between the letter L and E here, the space between ET and all these letters basically. And this is a sample, and this is, it has an 8% letter spacing. This one doesn't have any letter spacing. This one has a negative value. You can see how it's tight. In early design softwares, like, oh my Jesus, sorry. In early design softwares like PowerPoint, letter spacing would not be, you wouldn't be giving a value for letter spacing because they try to simplify it. They would say tight, very loose, and normal, right? So that defines the letter spacing in early design softwares. And the last thing is the line height. The line height is basically the distance between each line of text, right? So this very light purple rectangle, and it also has a value as well. In Microsoft Word, it's what you call double spacing. I think that's what it's called for people who have done projects in universities in Nigeria, or maybe universities generally. You hear conversations about using a double spacing. All right, so let's go more granular. So when you are designing, right, when you want to start something, it's always great to use a very great typeface. That's a font with, or a font family that has at least 3 different styles that you can play with. So at least you should have like regular, medium, and bold. So, well, technically all fonts can be made bold, but that's the software forcing the font to be bold. Well, you should choose a font family that has all this software, sorry, all these typefaces, sorry, all these weights. My bad, I was distracted. So a good place to scan for fonts, especially in this time, is what's it called? fonts.google.com. So if you go to your browser and you just search for Google Fonts, you get to see a list of fonts that exist on the web. Google Fonts is the largest font repository right now. And most softwares like Canva and most online softwares, basically, they use the fonts from this software. So when you want to use type, always try to use a contrast in weight. Oh, I forgot, these tips are from, I learned these tips from a guy called Chris Doe. He's a great designer and he has a YouTube channel called The Future. I have links attached here. And he says to use contrast in fonts is to skip a font weight. So ever wondered why you always have big headings and the body text is like small? You read novels, if you read articles online, you would see all these differences, right? So skipping a weight basically means if this was bold, don't use medium, use the next one. That's like regular. So here, that's basically me saying this is my font. The font I'm using here has this many styles, although it's a lot. So if I was to pick something for the body copy, that's the smaller text, or if I just wanted to show a difference between the header and the body content, I won't use regular, I'll use book. So I'm skipping this one here. Likewise, if I wanted to go to something bolder, I wouldn't use this, I would use this. This is very helpful when you are defining what should be read first, if I can put it that way. Next is, so when I was I'm still a graphic designer, contrast was, can you see this thing clearly? Yeah. Once you can see it clearly, it has good contrast. But contrast to product design, digital product design is, can you see it clearly when you're doing a backflip, or can you see it clearly when you are squinting? Because you have to account for different cases. Take, for example, when you're trying to read something and you're on the road, if you don't have a clear, if you don't have a good typography game, it will be difficult to read it. So this is just a very random tweet I tweeted. Moving on. So letter spacing. The trick to achieving great letter spacing is the larger the text, the closer the space, and the smaller the text. I mean, you just need some space. You shouldn't give it that much space, but the spacing should just be a little more than a very large text. And with text that are in all caps, you can basically put as much space as possible till it looks like they're far apart. The point of letter spacing is to make each of the letters feel like they belong together, not like they're very distant. So an example would be if I set the letter spacing of this to, let's say, 100, it still works, but they're sort of very far apart. But it works until it breaks. Moving on. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to show that on small text. So if I did that here, where it wouldn't work, if I did 100 the text is difficult to read because the distance between one text to the other is very far, and it's just very stressful. Imagine if you're reading a whole block of text that has this space. I mean, it makes sense because it's the same characters, but if they were like different words, it would be very stressful to read. Anyway, so line height. For designers generally, you should use about 140% of the original font size. And I'm talking about this in respect to Figma, which is using, I have this font and it's 40%. So, sorry, it's 40 pixels. All you have to do is just say, I want this to be 120 or 100, or there have you. For larger text, it's always advisable to keep the line heights really close to each other so that they feel together and not disconnected. But when you have like a huge block of text, it's always great to have like more space. So it's easier to distinguish the first line, easier to distinguish this line from this line, right? So especially if you read a lot of physical books, you will notice that the spacing is really great. So there's sometimes when you see things, especially Nigerian, I won't say especially Nigerian publications, but some Nigerian publications that are not well thought through. And it's so difficult for you to read. There are times when I would be in school and I won't be able to comprehend a textbook, and it wasn't really my fault. It was probably because the lines were too close to each other and I kept missing the next line and mixing it up. It might have happened to some other people. But yeah, so if you want to learn more about typography, a good place to start is an Àșà Session by, okay, there's Lit, rest in peace. And Barry did another one recently this year, and it's all linked, and I'll share my slides. Then, like I said, Chris Doe, I think he owns the future. He has a whole YouTube playlist on typography. It's very great, especially if you want to improve your typography game as a designer. But I think everybody should. Moving on. So yeah, I've been talking a lot. I think it's time for interaction. So what's your favorite font? I think I need us to answer in the chat box below. Ooh, who is this person? Please write your favorite font in the chat. What's your favorite font? I can see Poppins. Ubuntu. Ubuntu is great. Please write your favorite font. General Sans. Good stuff. I'm seeing an OG here. Okay, secular. John Taiwo, I'm feeling you. That's my guy. Overlock. Sad, I don't know. Who is Eniola? Say Comic Sans. Gilroy. Okay, that's great. Love it. So what's your favorite font and why is it Poppins, ladies and gentlemen? For you people that said Poppins, I know a number of you were pulling my legs. But yeah, so let's talk about Poppins for a quick minute. So we're in a Poppins-demic. That's basically a pandemic of Poppins, where everybody's using Poppins. And the problem with using Poppins is that, you know what, let me just run you through. These are a few websites that use Poppins. This is a Web3 platform. This guy has Poppins as the body text. Has a very great header font, but just had to use Poppins. This is a job role. It's a job application page in Poppins. This is another tool in Poppins. This is another tool in Poppins. I think the pandemic comes from mostly people in I think it was developers, devs basically, that try to feel cool, and they said, oh, we're not going to use the default font, let's do something else, let's use Poppins. So everybody started using Poppins. Poppins is everywhere. Yeah. And the problem with Poppins is, I just dropped when I was speaking about Poppins. The problem is not Poppins, it's probably you. Using poppins in this project is like using this guy. I don't know if any of you recognize this guy. Does anybody recognize this guy? Okay, moving on. Anyway, in case you don't, here is this guy in everybody's marketing material. So, oops, it's not scrolling. Why is that? Sorry, give me a second. Who is this guy? Sorry about that. So I'm going to change this from a group to a frame, and I'm going to shrink frame. Okay, and I'm going to try to do it again. Oops, where's my mouse? Found it. And I'm going to add horizontal scrolling. All right, let's try again. Yeah, it works. So this guy is basically everywhere. I mean, that's basically what happens when you use pop. Sorry, I said poppins. And the problem with this is that it makes you are supposed to be a brand that is unique. And you're here using just this one guy everywhere. This guy is a free, is a person actually. But if you're using him everywhere, it just becomes like, I don't want to say lazy, right? It's just a lazy attempt. Kudos to Carry-Wise and every other person who takes time to create great marketing material. It's very interesting to see. So this is like using poppins basically. And the worst one is when you use poppins and you use this guy. I mean, why? Why? So don't get me wrong, poppins is a good font, but you just don't have to use it, at least for now. Let's go back to its glory days. So takeaway here is, as a designer, you need to invest in your typography game. Makes you better, right? Makes you better. That's it, really. And it gives your project some uniqueness. You need to stand out, you need to be unique, right? And be great, do great work as a designer. Moving on. So Figma, but for motion. Again, remember Figma makes everything easy. I was supposed to share something here. Oopsie, I have PS here. Figma basically simplified prototyping for me. I've been really scared of doing motion design for the longest time because I'm scared of the timeline. Typical, like, it's like a very long line and you have to put stuff on it. And it's just weird, right? But Figma made prototyping easy and you can just see interactions easily. I would have shared that, but I think I'm running out of time, so I need to move faster. So, all right, so Figma for devs. I did a tweet earlier this week, or was it last week, talking about how developers can use Figma. And speaking of that, sometime this week, I had a conversation with a developer that requested for edit access because he said he couldn't export some assets. And I tried to explain to him. And that brings us to Figma for devs. But now, from a designer's perspective, because the reason why he asked for edit access was because he wanted to group stuff. And a lot of times when we design, we don't group elements. So it's difficult for developers to export. So I'm going to show you something else. So we're talking about coding now, right? Developers. So when you select a font in Figma, it gives you all these very cute properties, right? So this font has a letter spacing of -2%, yeah, which is written as -0.2 m. If you don't understand any of this, it's fine. So if you select, sorry about this. If you select this one that doesn't have a letter spacing, right? Figma doesn't put letter spacing, and that's because generally in CSS, if you don't write if you're not going to use that property, so it's basically like it's redundant to say letter spacing is 0, right? So last year I had an issue at work when most of my designs did not translate well in development in code, and that was because Figma didn't specify letter spacing, and so the I think the library the developers were using automatically gave, if you don't put a letter spacing, it would give the text a default letter spacing value. So let's say it will give you like 2%. So I found out that it's best to specify, like tell your devs, because you don't know what they'll be using, you don't know the libraries they'll be using. So always tell them that, oh, if you don't see letter spacing, use this, or just basically talk to them and tell them that, oh, this thing is very stretched. The spacing is a lot. Can you reduce it? So now that brings us to developer handoffs. So you need to know when to use frames versus groups as designers. So take, for example, if you have like two circles, you don't just leave them. You should probably group them. And you should use frames in cases where you want to, how do I put this? I think I'll come back to that. Then you should also list the properties in your design. So if you design the landing page and there's a button, you should spell it out. I think there are plugins for that. Or if there are no plugins, you just type it out. I think you should create design systems or at least a style guide as a developer. It's easier that way. I worked on a project with my friend, and before we started, he asked me for all the colors we'll be using in the project. And that's essentially what a design system is, right? Specifying all the things you would use, the fonts you would use, so that it's easier for him to write his code. Then the last thing is using relative values. So remember I spoke about letter spacing and line height. I think for now, that I can remember, those are the properties that allow you to use relative values. Relative values means that you're not using an actual value. An actual value is pixels. So if I said I wanted the line height to be 100 pixels, right? That's 100 pixels. But when you check the inspect, I think it's going to specify it in pixels. Line height, yes, it's 100 pixels. Problem with that is these days there is like mobile responsiveness, and if your developer is not really experienced, let's put it like that, they will just use the value like that, right? But if you use like a percentage value, so if I wanted 100 pixels letter spacing, I don't even know how I'll convert that. But the point is, I will just use a percentage instead. So 100% means 100% of the font size, and the font size is 72. So it's going to give you that letter spacing. And the other one, sorry, the line height, I'm calling line height letter spacing. Sorry about that. The other one is the letter spacing. Always use relative values. Don't stick to -2 pixels. Nah, it's not great for responsiveness. So try to use relative values. So the last one is, and the most important one is in developer handoff, is you need to talk to your devs, because people can be at loggerheads, but you should still be best of friends, I think, or colleagues, let's put it like that. So you can always, I think the best developer handoff is when you talk to them, you say, oh, hello, this is that, and this is how you do this. If you have any issue, reach out to me, and all of that. I think if you do all of this, then you're going to have zero or no issues with your dev friends, even though some of them have coconut hair, or you can meet in the middle. All right, so this is a very, 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 very interesting conversation. So should designers code or should they learn how to code? So go to www.menti.com and type in this code and answer. I will be waiting for you there. So let's see the results. So that's it. www.menti.com. John, can you share the link in the chat box?
All right. Okay.
All right. So the question is, should designers learn how to code? The link is www.menti.com, menti.com, and the code is 32771270. I'm going to check for responses now. Oh, we have responses. 4 people said no, or 4 people said no. Okay, I'm running out of time. Oh, we're having great numbers. More people are saying yes. The code is 32771270. I think if you have 10, I'm going to switch back. 8 people have said yes. Oh, we're winning. Yes is oh, let's say we. Oh, that's so biased. Yes is winning rather. Okay, we have 10. So that's great. I like that a lot of people say or said yes. I'll go back to it. Oh, okay, still winning. So it doesn't really matter. Yes, it does. It's a conversation about how the industry is moving. You have things like Webflow, and you basically you're at an advantage if you know how to code. So Figma in itself is addressing the gap between devs and designers by using code familiar things and other stuff. And Figma even thinks you should learn how to code. They have a tutorial or a playlist that teaches you how to build your own plugin. And yeah, so I think Figma think you should, but nobody says you must, right? I think it's just in everybody's best interest that you at least have an idea, you know, of basic stuff, at least HTML and CSS. At least you can start from there. And if it interests you, you can move on to JavaScript and TypeScript and everything else that exists, maybe Python, whatever. Might be too complex. Oh, sorry, you might not need to know Python, or just generally how it works, Sha. Because as a UX designer or a product designer or a UI designer, you will be mostly interfacing with front-end developers. You talk to back-end to and other people, but the point is you need to know how this stuff works and probably how to do it. It's easier for everybody. So a good place to start is Webflow. Again, I'm a big fan of tools that tell you how to use them, really. So Webflow is the one. And there is this guy called Design Course that uses poppins on his website. He has a crash course on front end. That's basically the basic things you need to know. It's just a good refresher to see how it works. I mean, just try your hands on it or not, really. But if you want to, the links are in the slide. Next question is, what's your favorite Figma feature? I'm going to check. What's your favorite Figma feature? Caveman says there's a lot to know in design already. Yeah, but you don't I think I'll answer the question later probably. What's your favorite Figma feature? John Taiwo says auto layouts. Deepa says exporting as SVGs. That's not a feature, Sha. But I'll allow that because I'm a guy. David says the new variant. That's cool. Okay, moving on. Because of time. I think my favorite feature is Figma updates. It's not a feature, I know, but Figma listens, right? There was the first version of auto layout, second version. I think there's a third version and a fourth version. I'm not sure. Constantly improving the software to make it better, and I think that's a really great. It's a really great thing when you listen to the people who use your product. So you can share ideas. If you're ever stuck on something in feature on Figma, you think, oh, it should be a feature. You can go to forum.figma.com and share, or you can simply just send a tweet and tag Figma. They are probably watching. They do listen. They listen. So now, how to better at Figma? So tutorials, you need to watch videos, you need to read articles, but I think watching videos and practicing is the best. So there is a very short slash long video. It's an hour plus video. No, sorry, it's just 1 hour about tips and tricks to help you work faster in Figma. And it's by Figma's team. And there's also a crash course on tutorial by Pablo Stanley. And there are many other tutorials on YouTube. Strictly, specifically speaking, Figma even has, they have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to you learning how to be a better designer. So yeah, you could just try and watch some of those videos, but I recommend you start from here. It's a good place to start, at least these two guys. So Figma tips, pro tips, yay. I know this is very basic, right? And you're like, what do you mean by copy and paste? Why? So let me show you something. So if I wanted to work on, let's say I wanted an orange fruit, I needed to work, I needed this orange image in Figma. You would download it, right? Or you can just simply like right click and just copy it here. And when you go to Figma, all you have to do is Control V and it's there, right? It saves you a lot of time downloading and importing. I can't remember the last time I used this feature, which is place an image, where you have to select the image from your, what's it called, from your uh, laptop or your computer, right? It goes, it's a lot. It's very nice and it saves you a lot of time. So you can copy images as well. There are a whole lot of things you can do with copy and paste, and it saves you a lot of time. You can copy files from one Figma file to another, and yeah, it's really cool. Oh, you can also copy files from another software to Figma. I currently know of Illustrator. You can copy a file from Illustrator and paste it in Figma. A vector from Illustrator and paste it in Figma. It's so cool. The next tip is auto arrange. So it's basically arranging stuff with auto layout. And how does that work? So let's assume you have like 3 rectangles, 4 rectangles. I need all of them to be on the straight line, right? You could select everything and then align the top. Then you can give them even spacing, right? Auto arranges, you just right click and say add auto layout, and it arranges it for you. Or you can use the shortcut Shift A, and it does that for you. And when you're done, because you don't want it to be an auto layout, just ungroup it. It's really quick, and you can also use it to change the order of stuff. So if you wanted it to be a vertical list, very easy, and you're done. Horizontal, vertical. There are lots of applications for this. And moving on, because of time, plugins. There's a plugin for everything. I mean, I have a lot of plugins I use. I use Map Picker, Mapsicle. I use Content Reel. I shared a while back how I automated a process of creating many certificates with one plugin. I usually spend a day plus in, sorry, I usually spend about a day creating certificates for over 40 people. And I did it in seconds in Figma with a plugin called Content Reel. It helps you paste content into Figma, basically. I can talk about that much later. And shortcuts. So the shortcut of shortcuts in Figma is Command or Control backslash. So basically, Command backslash. What am I looking for? Dark mode. I want to disable dark mode. I want light mode. So just search for light. And that's it. I want to go back to dark mode. Search for dark mode, right? I need to see all the keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts. It's really the best thing that happened to Figma after auto layouts and the new variants, right? So command backslash, if you're looking for anything, if you want to run a plugin, Content Reel, it runs it for you, and you hit enter. So that's the shortcut of all shortcuts. And yeah, there are other shortcuts you can use to move around canvas. I think Figma is working on something to show you all the shortcuts that would help you. So yeah, I'm done. Thank you for listening. Oh, sorry, I'm not done. I was joking. So now that I've talked about Figma, there are a number of things you can do with Figma. So if you are a UX designer, UX researcher, and you basically use Figma or FigJam to do your work, your day-to-day work. If you are a motion designer, maybe for websites, web apps, you can use Figma. Apparently, there's a new plugin that extends the possibilities of Figma. You can actually do more motion in Figma as opposed to the regular prototyping. If you are a product manager, you can use Figma. If you are a front-end dev, you would use Figma or XD or Sketch, but most likely Figma. And you could do digital illustrations in Figma. Remember that Eid Mubarak like I should. I did the illustration in Figma as well. So yeah, I'm done now. Are there any questions? Yeah, questions.
Okay, so thank you, Mano. If you have questions, how would you like the question, Mano? Do you like them to chat or like would you like them to speak?
I think depends on whatever you are comfortable with.
Okay. I'm comfortable with anybody just raising up their hands and just having a discussion because I'm sure some people would like to talk about why they love poppins also. So it's been nice to hear from.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
nice.
okay. So Ademola, please speak. You can unmute, or should I do that for you? Uh, you can unmute. Okay, if you're not here, Okoyemi can go.
Oh, hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mano, for this session. I learned two things. Yeah, two new things that I'm trying out now. So yeah, thank you for those tips. So yeah, what I just wanted to say was just it doesn't necessarily have to be a question, right? You just make a comment, correct?
It doesn't have to what?
It doesn't have to be a question. I can just like make a comment. Is that what you
Oh
said?
yes, you can make a
Oh yeah.
comment.
Oh,
There's a
There's
problem.
a
There's
problem.
God damn. What?
What is
It's so
going
There's a
on?
troll. There's a troll. There's a troll. There's a
Someone
troll.
hacked the space.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. All these Indian guys. Hi,
Don't they
Mano.
have
Hi,
things
Mano.
to do?
wow, that was so
Okay.
weird.
Hi, guys. Hi, Mano.
Wow.
Hi, guys. Demola.
Yeah, Demola, we can hear you. Seems like you're on the road.
Oh, no. Good evening, guys. Good evening.
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
All
can
right.
hear
First
you.
off, inside is my phone. From inside is my phone. My question is, does Figma recognize PDF files?
Did you say those Figma recognize that PDF files
It's
can
PDF files to editor, yes. But I tried it sometimes and it doesn't actually recognize.
oh, I'm not
Malfunction
sure.
for my head. I don't know if it was a malfunction for my head or something. You know, sometimes
Oh,
when you try to PDF file on Illustrator, you can edit it.
yeah.
But
So
it doesn't
there's
work.
definitely a plugin for that. If it doesn't work Figma, there's definitely a plugin for that. I can check for it and send it back to you.
All right. Thanks for that. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that was
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll check that for that.
all right.
All right.
Can I go now?
Yes,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
go.
you can.
Yeah, that was so weird. Yeah. Okay, so I have one question. How do I join the Àșà community or group or whatever? Is there like a Discord group, Telegram, WhatsApp? Which of them?
So there's a Telegram. There's a WhatsApp. So we would repost the wait list again on the Twitter, so you can just fill it in. Then you add anyone at the time that we're adding.
Okay, well, I'm not. Are you gonna paste it like tonight? Because I'm not. I'm like never.
Okay, I will post it. If not tonight, I'll do it tomorrow morning.
Is there like a link you can share or something so I could just kind of fill it out? Is that like cool?
Okay, like I would have to look for it now, and
Okay. Can I reach out to Mano?
yeah, you can reach out to Mano. You can reach out to anyone.
Okay, cool. The comment I wanted to make was about like, the whole conversation around should designers code, and what I just wanted to like say is that product design stems from like industrial design where you make like maybe phones, key holders, bottles and all that stuff. And those designers back in those days, when they design a maybe circular pencil or a rectangular speaker, they always know the inner workings of it, like the engineering of it. They don't manufacture it, but they kind of know it to an extent so that they can dictate to the manufacturing engineers how things should go. So I feel like it is really important, like Manu said, to know the basics. You don't really need to know how to write like production level code, but when you kind of speak in code with your front end guys, they feel you. You just have more respect. Do you get? So yeah, that's kind of my case for designers should actually like know how to code. You don't need it for work. Just know it really and just dump it somewhere. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for this session.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Any more questions?
I think David is saying they are visual designers. Yeah, so I think the argument is for product designers and maybe UI designers or UX designers generally.
Hi guys, can you Hi Mano.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually have an issue. Trying to fix. I installed a software on my system, so I was able to access. I installed a account on my system. I was able to access it on Photoshop. But trying to use on Figma, it was giving me error like that question mark error. You get my point?
It's difficult to hear you. Can you type?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but there's like a lot of background noise.
Right.
Can you send a message instead?
Okay, let me try and turn.
Right.
Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So some people are trying to join in. I don't know. I think it's the hackers. So I'm trying to like deny them entries.
Hi guys, hi Manu, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. But yeah,
Okay, I
just
tried to. Okay, so I tried installing a particular font on my system. Can you hear me?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, so I was able to access the font on other software like Photoshop. But when I tried accessing that particular font on Figma, it was giving me an error code to try and install again.
okay. Are you using the desktop or the browser? Using the browser as well.
I was actually doing a desktop.
Using the desktop app.
Yes. No, I was
Oh,
using a browser. I tried using a browser.
okay.
Sorry.
Is an extension that allows your fonts the fonts on your computer sync to um, the fonts on your browser. So Figma
Yes.
cannot access your computer unless you install that extension. I think I'll send the links. I'll send the link.
Nothing.
Called Figma.
Hello? It's breaking.
I'll send the link. So you need to install Font Helper and it would sync your font.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
You need to install a software by Figma and that would give you access
Okay.
to it will allow Figma read fonts on your computer.
On my computer. Okay. So thank you for that. So that is it a plugin or what do you call it?
It's not a plugin, it's an app.
An app. Oh, so how to
Yeah.
install that app?
Yes, on your computer.
How can you help me? How can you help me?
I remember
I'll
like
send the link.
Spanish suggest enter into
I didn't get that.
I'll send a link to you. I'll send the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that'll be good. That'll be good.
All right.
Man, I really appreciate you guys. You guys are really doing a great job. Man. Kudos to you guys. Man. Thumbs up.
Thanks, man.
yeah. Thanks. Okay, so
Uh,
we have questions from Anthony and Emeka. So please, Anthony, you can speak. Okay, you can. Oh, if Anthony is not here, Emeka can go, please.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mano if he will do any giveaways tonight.
Yeah. Who is this man?
Please share phones.
No, please, please, please.
Because I mean weekend.
We don't do that. We don't do that here.
Yeah, that's good. But nice one, man. Like
Thanks.
nice session, you held it down.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I hope you're using Figma now.
All right, Olumide, please go.
Hello, nice session.
Yeah, hi.
Great, nice hearing from you. It was a lot of good stuff I heard from you. I guess I have two questions. Then the first one will be I think I saw in a part of your your presentation you were talking about that you didn't use Photoshop for logo. I was now wondering what you used and if you still do like active graphic design. That's number one. Number two, I think this is the most important question. Some people ask me to ask that to know if you're in a relationship.
I think you need to focus. Yeah, that's the first thing. First things first, focus. Secondly, I still do graphic design sometimes. I think it's fun. I think in the long run, I want to do a lot more kinds of design, motion, and many more. I think as design evolves, I'd like to evolve with design. So I use Illustrator for logo designs, and yeah, that's about it. Hope that helps.
I don't know if you're still here, but are there more questions? Okay.
I think Olariwaju is trying to ask a question.
Okay. If you use exit, please exit. Exit this session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so the question is for people who just started with design, do they just jump into Figma?
Oh, okay. That's
Or
it.
sorry, let me finish up. Or there are some other basics and stuffs.
Okay. So that's a very great question. It also depends on, actually, it doesn't depend on what kind of design you're starting with or you're getting into. So I'm going to talk from a product UX perspective and generally actually. So when you start out designing, you really need to know design principles. Design principles are one and the same, irrespective of the kind of design you are doing. So, like I said earlier, the reason why I really like Figma is because Figma is not just here to educate you about how to use their software. They're here to educate you about design generally. So Figma has segments where they get people to talk about design in their companies and the challenges that designers are faced with and many more things, to be honest. There is a conference called Config. I think it happens every year. It's where Figma announces new features and they open the floor to designers around the world to talk about anything and everything in designing, right? So to your question, yes, you need to learn the basics of design. And I think Figma's YouTube and Config, basically, which is on YouTube, although they are live sessions when they happen, they really tell you a lot about design, how far design has come, the future of design possibly, and how design basically it's just a general conversation about anything you can think of in design. I think that people that even talk about 3D in Figma. And yeah, so yeah, that's it. I hope that helps. You're welcome. You can check Figma's YouTube for videos, for these videos. You can specifically search for config and you see different talks, different sessions, or you can just, I think there are resources about design principles as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mano. Man, so many people trying to join. Okay, let me check if there are other questions. No. All right then. So we can start recording. So we can just
The
slowly.
after party.
What?
The after party.
Yes. Yeah. The after party. Please stop recording, Caleb. In order to enter the next session, Àșà should verify if you have a Figma account with your email before letting you in. I mean, but like Àșà is not just product design though. There are like three guys. Yeah, I love parties. Like, why won't you love party? Do you want to be designing every time?
Have a design party.
Ah, please, that's so lame.
Thank you guys for coming to this session. I hope you enjoyed it.
They probably did like best in design, so like, why won't?
People are asking how they can get into Àșà.
Okay. So I would after this meet, I would post the form again, right, on the Twitter. So give me a minute to like drink some water after this stuff so I can post it.
All right.
I will pay you and you open the back door. What?
That sounds
so sus. What?
yeah.
To Foodman drop the Figma.
I'll drop the Figma link.
Yeah, the Figma link. Corruption not in my country. It's still recording. Wow. We're on record, yeah.
We'll have to chop it off.
Yeah, we'll chop it off.
David, is that you? Lumi, focus in this life. Deeper is
Manipulation.